The top 5 manipulators in Hunter x Hunter. Manipulation is a Nen type. Manipulators. Okay? It implies they have control over something or other people, with their Nen abilities. That's what a manipulator entails. So Zazan, she was one of the Chimera. She was trying to become their next queen. She took over Meteor City. She had like other fucking ants following her, and she was like, "I'm the next queen. I will be the one to like make our species the apex species. We'll get rid of these humans and other shit. This will be our home." But she was met with opposition by the Phantom Troop. They came back to hold down for the city. They were like, "Nah, nah, nah, bitch, you ain't doing that." Now it took Phaeton, one of their like heavy hitters, to actually put her out though. So she was powerful, and I had to put her on the list because of that, right? Because it took Phaeton using his most powerful attack to actually kill this bitch. Because beforehand, she was actually doing some damage to him a little bit. At number 4, I have Morel. Morel, Morel Macronassi. He is a hunter, well experienced hunter. He went into the NGO to fight against the Chimera ants. He was part of the extermination team. He uses deep purple. He manipulates smoke. That's the things that he manipulates. He can create little soldiers of smoke. He can create clones of him that are made of smoke. He can even make string made of smoke. See, he had Chi2 inside of or Chi2 had him inside of a pseudo space, I guess. He had to wait for the time to run out. In that time, though, he tied yarn around his leg, and now he couldn't move. A cloud is like soft; you pass right through it, but he has the ability to like make it actually as sturdy as rope. So like Chi2 couldn't move, and he was pissed, right? So he was actually fighting well against these animals. I don't think he exterminated any. He didn't really exterminate anyone, though. But he was fighting against more powerful, Chimera ants at the same time, right? So I give him some credit there. Now, at number 3, I got Shalnark of the Phantom Troop. Shalnark, he puts this little needle, this little pin in somebody's neck, and then he can control them with a remote. Just kill these people. And he had like a whole bunch of people shooting, at other random people, right? He also during the auction, he had the auctioneer, still running his mouth, letting the auction go on, so they could move the real artifacts into a a car or whatever, so they can go away with it. And then Cortopi was also making making copies of them, right, so that he could get them out. So the guy could keep being like, we auction off this vase that's made from whatever the fuck, right? And and selling that to the people, right, getting it auctioned off. And this guy is being controlled the whole time, so their cover ain't blown. He's good for that kind of thing, and he actually does manipulate people well with that move. So, but at number 3 or number 2, actually, I have Shaiapouf. See, Shaiapouf was able to get these people. He could you know he could manipulate people with like um it's like a pollen and shit, because this guy is like insect based kind of chimera ant, right? He's one of the royal guard members, and he like basically puts them in a sedated state, right? They just are there with their mouths open, like, and there was a whole bunch of people just ready to be eaten by the chimera ants. They're just like getting ready to be fed to the chimera ants, and he set that shit up, right? He set it up to where they would be fed, because like now they're like entranced by whatever, he's making them see shit, right? you know Hypnotizing these people and shit, right? He's at number 2. I think Illumi Zoldyck is actually good at his manipulation too. You could flip 1 and 2 if you wanted to and give it to Shaiapouf. but I'm giving it to Illumi of the Zoldyck family. He uses manipulation tactic too. He had a needle placed in Kill's head. That was actually holding him back. He had to, like, later on in the series, towards the premiere arc, he had to pull that shit out. But he had that in his head for, a long time. And then he could also do what Shalnark does and, manipulate other people's bodies and shit, right? And control them to do what he wants. These are the manipulators that I found to, be the most powerful in the series, right? I got Zazan at number 5. I got Morel at number 4. I got Shalnark at number 3. Shaiapouf at number 2. And I got Illumi at number 1. And those are the top 5 manipulators in Hunter x Hunter. Be cool, call on the corner, and let me know what you think about that. And if I missed any manipulators, let me know in the comments what you think.